London Mayor Sadiq Khan wants to decriminalise cannabis because stop and search is damaging police relations with ethnic minorities. What's he been smoking? Let's deal with the racism bit first, shall we? Facts aren't racist. In 2020, the then head of the Met Police said that black people in the UK were unfortunately 8 times more likely to commit violent crime. The figures from London in 2022 show that black people were charged with 64% of gun offences, 59% of homicides, 53% of robberies and 47% of knife offences. Now, maybe there's a reason why some ethnic minorities in London are 2.2 times as likely to be arrested than white people, and that reason isn't racism. Do you remember the case of the Rolex Rippers, a violent gang nicking watches from people? Well, there they are. Now, look, hey, I don't think it would be racist to stop and search them. But I tell you what, I reckon there's a fair chance that those lads have enjoyed the odd cannabis joint in their time, don't you? Now, I have a lot of viewers and listeners who are black or are of ethnic minority background. And I want you to know that I am absolutely not saying that I think black people and ethnic minorities are dope-smoking criminals. What I am saying is that I think that Sadiq Khan saying we should decriminalise cannabis to stop racist police is complete and utter rubbish, OK? Now, I'll tell you what I think he's doing. Firstly, he wants young people who smoke cannabis to vote Labour. I think it's votes for the Mandem, isn't it? Secondly, he wants cannabis possession off his crime stats. Thirdly, police are already not doing that much about it. Pretty much everywhere in the UK, it smells like Bob Marley's recording studio. Now, I tell you what Britain needs: more lunatics. We need more drug addicts on public transport. Oh, yeah, more of that, please, more of that. We can't stop knife crime, gun crime, rapes. You know that there's one rape reported every hour in London. Let's legalise cannabis, though, while we're at it, hey? If you're a hard-working, law-abiding taxpayer, Labour are making your life worse. If you're a dope smoker, well, you want to make your life a bit easier, don't they? Which will also make life easier for knife carriers, because they're not going to be stopped and searched as much. Welcome to modern Britain. The police are too busy kicking down people's doors for mean tweets to bother about rampant drug use anyway. Now, I can bring you a GB News exclusive that reveal police forces' priorities. You ready? Police forces are spending more than £10 million on diversity posts, enough to hire roughly 354 bobbies on the beat. West Yorkshire and Thames Valley are the biggest spenders on diversity, equity and inclusion, both surpassing £1 million. And 2 posts in Kent and Thames Valley are raking in wages of more than £100,000 a year. A total of £9.37 million is being spent on wages, another 11 grand when you round it up on courses, amounting, of course, to that total of 10.2 million. Look, I think people are kind of OK and, in fact, want this from police. What's up? Instead, we get this. Do people like Sadiq Khan really want to turn Britain into a stinking, lazy, paranoid, schizophrenic, cannabis-infused hellhole policed by officers wearing pink feather boas and pronoun badges? Let's get those to my panel. We've got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster and columnist Nina Mishkov. Thank you very much for joining us. Mark, I'll start with you on this. Legalising cannabis, I'm not necessarily focus too much on that. It's more about the general state of Britain, isn't it, under Sadiq Khan and
Yes, I mean, I think on the narrow point of legalising cannabis, I understand what Sadiq Khan said is you shouldn't face a charge for possession of a small amount. In fact, 72% of people already caught with a small amount don't face a charge anyway, so I don't think this would shift the parameters of drug use.
It's the idea of it disproportionately affecting ethnic minorities.
No, that's exactly the point. The idea that you would change your drugs policy because ethnic minorities, that's absolutely ludicrous. You should not set the criminal law or the sanction in order to protect or safeguard any particular named community. The law and justice need needs to be blind. So I hate his rationale. More generally, though, I want the police freed up from not having to waste their time on relative trivia, and I would include in that prancing around with feather boas, right? And focusing on burglaries and stabbings and the rest of it, not diversity and inclusion, not doing the YMCA dance, and probably not wasting too much time if you've caught someone with a small amount of cannabis in their back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel as though, and this isn't just a London story, by the way, because whatever happens in London tends to come to the rest of Britain, and ultimately it is a national story. But Adam, it feels just increasingly lawless here. The idea that we will be relaxing a drug law sounds mad.
Look, it sends a message that it's OK. That's in my opinion. It opens the floodgates to more people using it. So we've seen in many US cities and Canadian cities, once they've decriminalised cannabis, other problems arise, such as increased crime like burglary and other things. So I think even in New York, they see a rise in synthetic drugs hit the streets, which caused a lot of violence as well. So it's the message that it sends for me, and that is, you know, it is becoming lawless. If this happens, you know, what else rises in the capital?
Nina, is stop and search racist?
If you look at the figures, it would appear to be, because black people are 9 times more likely to be stopped and searched. And if you look at the population of our prisons, that's not equated in that way. And the thing about stopping and searching for cannabis is that cannabis is equally used by all races. You can't just say it's black people. You can't just say, OK, fine, there's a Caribbean, there's Jamaican heritage to this, but the statistics do not show that. And so this is completely disproportionate. I completely understand that. And what is I worry about synthetic. I worry about, you know, a lot of these laws are being more discussed by people who think back to their old university days when it was all kind of peace, love and very, you know, easy and happy, smiley people. Whereas I'm not a druggy person at all, but I understand that skunk, for instance, nowadays is absolutely, you know, lethal practically.
Well, absolutely, and I firmly am of the view that it is a gateway drug and all of that stuff, personally. But on that point, then, do you think that the stop and search is racist? You know, do the facts show that?
No, I don't believe it is. And you said in your intro, Patrick, that facts cannot be racist. But it would be wise, wouldn't it, to use stop and search amongst cohorts that are more likely to commit crime. I haven't seen the breakdown of men versus women, for example, but men commit many more crimes than women. I think it would be ludicrous for men to say, we insist that 50% of the people stopped and searched must be women, because women have a much, much lower propensity to commit crime. So, generally speaking, you'd expect particular cohorts around gender, around age, around ethnicity, around geographical area to be more likely to be stopped and searched, because the raw facts say that they are more likely to be involved in some sort of criminal activity.
But the thing
Far better to do that than to have some preposterous idea that for every man that you stop in his 20s, you've got to stop a woman in her 80s.
I understand what you're saying, but the point being, even just hearsay, you can pick any black person at a bus stop on the tube and say, have you been stopped and searched? And they will have been stopped.
It's more likely for men as well.
I mean, I've been
of course
stopped
for men.
and searched
But I mean,
twice.
Yeah, well, people...
Right, it's not just an ethnic minority thing. I've been stopped and searched. I've never
Patrick,
found them.
we're not saying every black person is a criminal. That would be a ridiculous statement and very racist. But what we're saying is certain crimes in London... I work with knife crime communities and many figures from the black community that want me to say this. Black men are more likely to commit knife crime. I think you said there it was 46%. I've seen a stat that is up to 60%. So lives will be saved if more black men are searched, because we need to take these knives off the street. So facts, as you say, cannot be racist.
And you'd expect the police to target those cohorts.
Yeah.
Well, we also, one of our reporters here had something through to us earlier before we came on air, which is that in Scotland there is a shoot-up room where heroin users are able to go
in Glasgow,
and do it safely, right? There's a primary school over the road, and every single morning they have to go through the sandpit in that primary school with metal detectors to make sure that there aren't stray needles there. And I just think, is that really where we're going with laws like this? I mean, you look also at the exclusive that we brought to you there, which was about the 10 million quid that police forces are spending on DEI. So is that not something, if we put 345 more bobbies on the beat somewhere, where potentially we could actually clamp down on things like drug and knife offences instead of making sure that you know, people didn't feel as though there was any racism in the police?
Yeah, and I mean, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? It's basically the truth of it. That story you've just shared about the shoot-up room, you can understand what's behind this in principle, that we want to make sure that there's a safer space, that you're not sharing needles, therefore you're less at risk of disease and all the rest of it. There's a good case for trying to get people who are on drugs into rehab and into the health system rather than the justice system. But too often, the wider community impact is overlooked. You know, it shouldn't be anywhere near a school, for crying out loud. Absolute lunacy. And all of this DEI stuff, I mean, thankfully, I think it is unwinding now. At least, I mean, I'm not saying people are yet losing their jobs, but public attitudes have turned against this so strongly that people are livid that the police are not solving crimes whilst they are worried about diversity and inclusion.
Could I ask you, Nina, as a woman, that there's one rape reported every hour in London, and the figures across the country for rape and convictions of rapes are absolutely devastating. That is therefore predominantly a problem that affects women, right? If Sadiq Khan cared as much about women as he does about ethnic minorities feeling as though they're being disadvantaged with stop and search, wouldn't he be spending things like the DEI budget? He'd be taking that off, he'd be putting more bobbies on the beat, putting more resources in to stop what is an epidemic of rape in the capital city.
Well, the thing is, I think most rapes are perpetrated by people known to the person on a date, supposed date or something. It's not like some stranger jumps you. Very sadly, in the past, there have been terrible rapes and murders with, you know, by complete strangers. But rapes are perpetrated, and in terms of rape, we need to see what society is pushing men towards.
You don't think that's a bigger problem, though, than whether or not people who happen to be ethnic minorities feel as though they're unfairly targeted for stop and search?
No, I don't think this is done primarily because of that. And another reason why Sadiq Khan is quite keen on this is if you decriminalise drugs, then you have potentially a great source of tax revenue.
Yes.
I mean, in New York State, there's $1 billion alone. I mean, Sadiq Khan went to California in 2022 and he liked what he saw there. He said that you can raise a lot of million for good causes.
Yes, I just can't quite remember off the top of my head exactly who paid for that trip to California for our man. But anyway, what do you rate to that kind of case there, Adam? That actually, look, if we decriminalised it, bear in mind that loads of people are doing it anyway and all of this, that we could make money off it, that we could put that money into the tax.
Because the effects of that will cost us money in other areas. As I say, crime will go up. It's happened in New York. Cannabis use in Portugal rose by over 50% when they legalised it. So
yes, but but deaths from overdoses went down dramatically. They did.
Not in certain towns. They did.
I can see what you mean about the other side of it, especially if there are mental health problems that can come from it, which there are, and things like that. Just a final point on this, Mark. Is there the cynic in me would suggest that there's also a voting electoral element to this?
Yeah.
Would you go with that? What do you think that is?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, sadly, this afflicts politicians of all stripes, really. We're in danger of having politicians who have their identified cohort of voters, key swing voters, and if you tilt your policies to favour them, it's an electoral win. As they say, if you rob Peter to pay Paul, you're guaranteed a Paul's vote, right? Yeah. So quite a lot of politics is based around that.
But let's be honest. If you are targeting cannabis users, they are the people less likely to be asked to get out of bed to vote.
Well, unless they can be legalised. Well, but you might get the either vote once.
They won't be able to get out of bed. Don't be ridiculous. It's an idiotic.
No, I don't know. I mean, I was having a look at some of the reaction online to this, as you would imagine, and to be fair, it's quite mixed. It is quite mixed. The taxation point is something. Some people saying that there are already ways. You know, people can get involved with alcohol. I've been very honest about things with me in the past on that. You know, if we were reclassifying everything, would alcohol be more harmful than cannabis?
Yes,
possibly. Yes. So look, I do see both sides of it. I think just more from the London mayor and policing angle, I would really rather that they focused on solving things like murder and knife crime. But anyway, a Home Office spokesman has said this: "We will continue to work with partners across health, policing and wider public services to drive down drug use, ensure more people receive timely treatment and support, and make our streets and communities safer. We have no intention of reclassifying cannabis from a Class B substance under the Misuse of Drugs Act." That's the government's position now. We'll see what goes on in future